Hello, and welcome to the A side for the first week of December. My name is David Snipes from 7poundbag.com, and again, this is the A side. This is kind of my non temporary, my more topical podcast of the week here. I do want to eventually start doing more B sides. Our last one was, of course, What Makes a Great Wrestling Manager, which you can find on our channel listings here or on the website. But this week we're going to be doing an all MMA show. I'm going to break down the new Bellator Heavyweight Tournament, give you my thoughts on that, and I'm also going to break down UFC 218. If you don't care about the Bellator, I'll put the timestamp when I flip over to UFC in the comments. Again, thank you for joining me. I would appreciate if you drop by the website, take a look at what all we've got here. With today being Friday, of course, we have our wrestling roundtable, we have our football roundtable, and if you missed it, you can always go back and look at yesterday's basketball roundtable, as well as Joe's Wednesday, from Wednesday. I have also started a new show on Tuesdays where I start breaking down top tens, which is basically based on Stephen Hall's Pounding Sevens. So you have that to look for as well. So eventually, that's the two shows that I'm going to try to do more consistently. Again, I appreciate those of you that keep popping and taking a look at this. I will try to get more B-sides when my schedule allows. Trying to get more consistent more than just throw stuff out here to you. But enough jibber-jabber, let's get on with the Bellator. Now, one thing I do like about it is they did do it as a straight tournament. They didn't seed the tournament. They didn't come out and do a blind draw. They actually just picked matchups. I think they did that to keep certain people against certain sides, to try to keep rematches out of it, and to kind of make an easier path for some fighters versus others. Let's look at it this way. If you were going to seed it, I think just based on what's going on, based on recent history, I do think your quote-unquote weaker fight would be Rampage versus Chael Sonnen. I do think your number one fighter going into it is Matt Mitrione. Your guy that's going to cause the much trouble is going to be Roy Nelson, and they're all on one half of the bracket. And I do think that kind of causes problems because I do honestly think that Rampage Jackson's one and done. I don't think. I think if he wins, I think if he draws, and I'm not exactly sure Chael Sonnen wants to fight at heavyweight. It would not surprise me if our alternate, be it Carwin, Carlingo, whoever, steps down after this first fight. But, well, Sonnen probably not, just because he's so laser focused on getting a belt. I think he'd fight anybody. I think he'd even try to make a weight cut at 135 if Bellator would give him a title shot. But that's irregardless. But I do think on that half of the bracket, it's pretty much Mitrione and everybody else. And I'm saying that as a Roy Nelson fan, but I'll come back to that. Other side of the bracket, that's where most of your interest is going to come from. I do think it is made for Mitrione to be in the finals. Our other side, we've got Fedor. He's fighting Frank Mir, who's kind of fading a bit. Either one of these two guys can be a legitimate heavyweight champion. Fedor, again, is the name. The last fight's the one, I don't know why they put Bader into this, considering he does have a heavyweight, considering he's your light heavyweight champion, and considering Mo Lawal has fought Bader in wrestling when they were both in college. But I don't quite understand why you put Bader and Mo in here. But to me, I would have much rather saw. I mean, you could put Carwin versus Congo in here, and that would be a better half of that bracket, in my opinion. But again, Bellator has got a viable light heavyweight. They've got viable contenders. I mean, you got Phil Davis, you got Liam, you got Tito, who's always willing to come back. You got Sonnen, who just won. You know, they've got Wanderlei. I mean, shoot, you tell me you couldn't build a Wanderlei. I mean, Wanderlei versus Lawal, I'd love to see, to be quite honest with you. And Mo, if you really look at it, is the only Bellator grown guy here. And again, to me, that's a problem. But let's break down the fighters, and I'll kind of sprinkle in a little bit of stuff in here for you. Our first fight, of course, we got is Rampage Jackson versus Chael Sonnen, which is going to be on our new Paramount Network, which I'm sure all of you have already got your DVR set for. That's scheduled for January 20th, so we're only a couple of months out for that. And what do you mean you don't have the Paramount Network? Nobody has a Paramount Network. It's a new channel that they're going to come out with, which those of us that are MMA fans know how much fun that is when Fox Sports came out, and we couldn't find anything whenever they started throwing fights on it. This is probably your premier first round matchup just because these two are such good talkers. These two can do so much stuff in the media. They've done so much stuff in the sport. Rampage, of course, if you're a pride never die type guy, is still much beloved in your heart. And Chael Sonnen, of course, can talk trash on the Pope if he wants to. Uh, and those of us that listen to his podcast know how much fun he can be with this. Problem you've got is who's got the Paramount Network? Why isn't this on Spike? Why isn't this being built as your premier show? Because you've got a middleweight jumping up 2 weight classes. You've got Rampage, who's always a wild card as far as conditioning, but I have problems with Rampage pretty much since the Rashad Evans fights. He's always in the best shape of his life. He's always rededicated himself. He's always trying harder. He's always doing this. He's always doing that. Then you see him in the cage and you're like, dude, go back to Japan. I mean, I almost want to see Rampage go fight at 1, to be quite honest with you. Go over there with Ben Askren, hang out with him. Fight in Japan, get bulked up again, look mean, get tough. He's just not the same guy anymore, and it's kind of depressive. But let's see, Quentin Rampage Jackson, just to kind of narrow him down here. He's 1-1 in Bellator. He's 4-1 overall in Bellator, 1-1 in his current run. Of course, that's much better since his last 3-loss streak, which basically thought he was over. He last fought in March, so he'll be almost a year outside the cage. He's age 39. He does have one opponent here, which is when he lost to King Mo. Chael Sonnen is also 1-1 in Bellator, but he's 2-4 in his last fight. In his last 5 fights, last 6 fights. And to me, 2-4, and he's and you put him in a heavyweight tournament 2 weight classes up. This is obviously shoehorning somebody who can move tickets into a bracket. He's aged 40. He last fought in June, which was again his fight with Wanderlei Silva. I do like this fight when we get a little bit closer because it would not surprise me if we had to get an alternate because of this fight right here. Would be kind of fun to see Chael Sonnen fight Czech Congo, to be quite honest with you. But our next matchup, we've got Matt Mitrione, who's 3-0 in Bellator. And as I said, definitely the number one. I think if you look at him, he'd definitely be the number 1 seed in any kind of this. He's beat Fedor. He lost to Roy Nelson. Last fought June 24th at the ripe old age of 39. Get used to seeing this age range here. Again, I think he got probably one of the worst guys for his skill set in Roy Nelson, who's 1-0 in Bellator, but I do see him kind of slowing down. He's actually beat Mitrione before, so we do actually have a rematch here. Nelson lost to Mir in both a grappling contest and in the UFC. Grappling contest was kind of a hose job in my opinion, if you've ever gotten a chance to see that. Now keep in mind, Roy Nelson is 4-7 in his last 11, going all the way back to 2013. So in my opinion, he's kind of on a decline. His punching power is still there. His chin, not so much. His cardio, not so much. He does tend to... His game plan in the 3rd round is the same as his game plan in the 1st round. And to me, that's always been his biggest problem. He doesn't flip a switch and start diving at legs. He doesn't flip a switch and start throwing uppercuts. He sticks to one game plan for the entire 15/25 minutes, and it gets him in trouble. So, but again, like I said, I think this bracket is set up for Mitrione. Would not surprise me at all if we end up with Mitrione versus Carwin for our semifinals, but that's just me. And then, of course, we get the big drawing power, Fedor Emelianenko. He's 0-1 in Bellator. For that, he's 1-4 in Strikeforce, and he's got some, let's say, questionable fights in between those 2 runs. He's actually 41. He's still an amazing name. He's still an amazing fighter, maybe. I do kind of wonder. I do love this matchup. At their primes, I do love this matchup with Frank Mir, who, just to let you know here, he's 18-11 overall. He's 0-0 in Bellator. This will be his premiere. He's 2-6 since 2012. He's, ever since he bulked up to try to take on the Brocks and Carwins of the world, he has not looked the same. He hasn't looked as spry. He hasn't looked as mobile. I think his weight cut was a huge mistake for his career, and I said so at the time. Those of you that go with me all the way back to the Informative Sports days. He's actually one of our younger competitors at 38, believe it or not. But I do wish that MMA had a cruiserweight division. I like 235 because Mir would be perfect for that. You put him up against these giants, and Mir just has a hard time competing with him. To be quite honest with you, it's not part of his skill set. I do wish I could do a whole 20 minutes on what ifs on Mir's career. Had he not got that motorcycle accident, I think the UFC would be changed as far as the heavyweight division. I do think that would. I don't. Let's say Randy Couture's not revered as much as he would be if Frank Mir not got in that accident. But like I said, I could do a whole thing on that. Maybe I will one day. Maybe me and Gil from the Combat Sports Report can talk about that one day. Mir does have one common opponent here. He's beat Nelson. 10 years ago, I'd have loved to see this fight. I would have spent lunch money for the last 2 weeks to see this fight, especially over in Pride, considering Mir the way he is. Our last fight of the bracket is again another light heavyweight contender. It's kind of funny. On this side of the bracket, you've got guys that if they had a 235, this could easily be a title eliminator. The other side of the bracket is actually where you have true heavyweights. Well, you have two of them, but still. Anyway, you've got Ryan Bader, which is our current light heavyweight champion. He's 2-0 in Bellator, 24-5 overall. He's our youngest competitor at 34 years old, which does kind of say a bit about Bellator's fascination with older people. And yes, I'm older than everybody in this bracket, so yeah. He fights King Mo. Again, like I said, they fought before in college. This is their first time actually in the cage. King Mo was 9-4 in Bellator. So if you do the math here, the other 7 people in this tournament have got 7 wins in Bellator. King Mo has 9 on his own. He is the only Bellator homegrown champion, or excuse me, homegrown contender in this bracket, which is amazing. Everybody else either made their name in the UFC or Pride or both. And I gotta say, Bellator, you gotta do something about that here. That is your problem. But anyway, because whoever wins this tournament outside of King Mo, whenever you first pull up their name, you're going to think something else. It's like if Mitrione wins. First thing I think about Mitrione is he was the breakout guy of Ultimate Fighter 10. Roy Nelson, of course, won that, but still, that's whenever I think of Mitrione, that's where I think of him from. But anyway, King Mo, by the way, is 2-2 in his last 4. He's got losses to both. He's got a loss to Phil Davis already. His last fighting, he was out against Crow Cop and looked horrible doing it. He's 36 years old. This is by far our youngest pairing here. Last fought in March 2017. So that is your breakdowns for it. I do like this bracket. I do like the way they did it. You don't really have... Heavyweight is a thin division all around. Bellator kind of yanking a few of these people out of the UFC made their waters a lot later. If you look at their upcoming cards, you got Bellator number 1, which has got James Thompson versus Philip DeFries. Wouldn't surprise me if there's our other alternate, if they're able to not come to an agreement with Shane Carwin. But the thing I want to ask you a question here, in all seriousness. What did Chet Congo do to piss off Coker? Did he park in his parking spot? Did he step on his foot? Did he tell him that Coker means dipshit in French? I mean, what did he do? He's 9-2 in Bellator. He's on a 5-fight winning streak. He's beat Matt Mitrione. I mean, yeah, he's lost to King Roy and King Mir, but still, I mean, he's probably out of all these fighters the closest one that's been ranked. I mean, I think he was even right outside the top 10 on Sherdog not that long ago. But why isn't he in this tournament? I mean, I guess I could see if he's like the first contender up, maybe he knocks off, like say Mo loses to Bader, maybe he fights Mo just to get his name out there. But he is somebody who definitely should, in my opinion, have been in this tournament. Like I said, you give me Congo versus Carwin instead of Chael Sonnen versus Rampage. I'm perfectly happy with that fight. I'd love to see Rampage versus Sonnen fight. Don't get me wrong, but I do think that would be something I'd rather see en route to a light heavyweight championship fight. I'd love to see Chael versus Rampage. Winner gets Liam. As long as we keep Emmanuel Newton out of it, I'm perfectly fine with it. Even though I do like the guy, but that is my basic breakdown for it. Like I said, I don't see I don't see Mitrione facing the winner unless it's Son and he comes through clearly. My biggest problem I have with this is a year-long tournament. The first round's not going to end until May, which means maybe we get Sonnen versus versus Mitrione in July, maybe, and then we get I'm just going to say Fedor versus Bader at what, September, and then we get, I mean, then are you really going to be able to do a New Year's Eve show with Bader versus uh, Mitrione? I mean, maybe. But the problem you've got there is you've got a light heavyweight title that has been sitting out there forever in 3 days, and nobody's challenged for it. So you're holding up your light heavyweight champion for an entire year if he succeeds. And if he loses, especially if he loses to King Mo, you've got a light heavyweight that beat the light heavyweight champion but didn't take the title, and the guy that just won is advancing in another bracket. To me, having Bader here's a mistake. I could see it if he moved tickets. I could see it if you were doing the Bellator pay-per-view and it was Bader versus Fedor. They agreed to make it a heavyweight fight, but they're fighting at 235, and there was any kind of buzz whatsoever for Bader to move up to heavyweight. Like he'd cleaned out the light heavyweight division. I mean, I am a fan of Bader. I do like his moxie. I do like the way he carries himself, but he's no John Jones. He's not cleaned out the light heavyweight division by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, I'm talking previous John Jones before he got busted the first time. But again, that's just me. That's the way I look at it. But that is my Bellator breakdown. Give me a second. I'm going to take a pause for the cause, then we'll come back and talk UFC, and we will be back here in a second here. If you got any thoughts on it, you think I'm out of whack on my tournament, by all means leave me comments here. Alright, well, I'll take my timestamp here. I would appreciate if you'd stop by the website, take a look at all the stuff we've got for it. I do have some movie reviews. I've actually got one of my movie review videos coming up. If you like those, please let me know. I do have some new stuff popping up this week. I'm going to try to do more on YouTube, so please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments what you think. If there's anything you'd like me to talk about next week, please let me know. I don't really want to do football picks, but if that's what the fans want, that's what I'll provide. And again, I will take all haterade and grape Kool-Aid and we'll move on. So, let's get to the UFC, and I'll try to burn through these fairly quickly here. First one I really care about is going to be Henry Cejudo versus Sergio Pettis. Pettis, I'm not quite sure where he goes from here, to be quite honest with you. He's got all the talent in the world. I think he's a very good fighter. I think Cejudo's a very bad matchup for him, just because Henry does not slow down that much. His stand-up has gotten much better here recently, to be quite honest with you. He's always going to be dangerous in the takedown. He's always going to be dangerous in the top game. I don't know if Sergio's jiu-jitsu can really be much of a threat there. I would put serious money on Cejudo in basically winning this fight however he likes to. If I was Pettis or if I was advising Pettis, I would tell him to stay outside as much as possible, make Henry switch stances, make Henry get over anxious, and basically kick the snot out of him. Anytime Henry comes up, bring those knees up, because if Cejudo is diving and he runs into your knee, that's not your fault. I would keep my back toward the cage. I would not move a lot forwards. I would go side to side constantly. Whenever Henry sets his back foot, that's when I would kick. And I would do my best to destroy his freaking knees. And that's, to me, his best option here. Our co-main event is going to be Alistair Overeem versus Francis Ngannou, who's on a 5-fight winning streak. Again, this always comes down to which Overeem shows up. Overeem, in my opinion, is probably one of the better what-ifs in MMA history. Had he ever got to a decent coach, had he ever got to a different team, had he ever got somebody that could get into his head and make him his best, make him peak at fight night instead of peaking in the gym or peaking a week later or peaking in round 2 instead of round 3, there's no way he's got 15 wins. He's got everything. He's got good wrestling. He's got good brawling. He's got good chin. He's got good kicks. He's good on his back. He's good on top. He's good everywhere at all times. The problem is he never breaks into great territory. It's like, I'll throw back Randy Couture. You get Randy Couture in certain situations, you can wax him. but Randy has a knack for knowing where he's going to be great at that night and turning on and dominating. One week or one fight, it's going to be his stand up versus Chuck. One week, it's going to be his wrestling game. One week, it's going to be his game from the bottom. One week, he's going to be his clinch. He basically sits back and says, okay, this week, this fight, I'm going to be a master at stand up. And they're not going to know what the heck's going on. Next thing you know, he's winning. Alistar never has that switch. He never has that engagement. He's never an easy win by any stretch of the imagination, but he's never somebody that I'd be confident putting rent money on. It's like, just to harken back to the Bellator tournament, those of you that skipped all that stuff. If you put Alistar versus Rampage, that'd be a fight I'd be fascinated to see, because if they both showed up in top flight condition, it would be an all-star contest. But they could both show up and look like utter and complete crap. I mean, and I'm talking Caleb Starnes versus Kimbo Slice type of dodging and not wanting to get hit. I mean, but Alistar, I'm going to take Francis. I'm not happy with it, just because I think he's going to come out, he's going to put pressure on him, and he's going to try to get the fight over. And Overeem at times will try to duck, try to push for time, try to extend the fight and not wise matters. And I think that plays into Francis' hands, because he does tend to tire a little later on. He does tend to wear out. But I do think he comes through, and I think he's got enough in the gas tank to take the decision. Would I be stunned if Overeem won? Not in the slightest. But I do see this being I'm leaning Francis, but I'm not happy about it. I might be wrong, and I probably am. But like I said, out of these 4 fights that I'm going to look at, that's the one I'm like, I want to see it, but I'd almost rather see it after the fact when I know if it's going to suck or not. Just because Overeem does have that tendency. He's like Verdum. Okay, our main event of the evening is going to be Max Holloway versus Jose Aldo. This kind of depends on which Aldo shows up. Max Holloway hits very hard. He's a very good fighter. He's a very angry fighter. And depending on really who shows up, which one's going to be... If they both show up as best as they can, it could be a very solid fight. Aldo has been undefeated forever in 3 days until he walked into that left hand. But do we really look at who's going to be... I mean, can you really get past Max Holloway, in all honesty? Can he make Max work? I mean, that's my scary thing. I mean, he's already beat him once. Is he going to come out with that same hunger? Is he really going to come out with that anger that he usually has? I am going to take Max Holloway, and I think he finishes him. I don't believe in the whole leg kick excuse, because Aldo has always been one of those guys that if he's got a hangnail, he'll pull out of the fight. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. I don't think UFC 218 is important enough for Aldo that, yes, I've got to make this fight. I've got to do this now. Aldo would normally be more than happy to pull out of a fight just to get something better, to work on something, to nurse a hangnail. There's almost no chance that he is going to come into a fight hurt enough where it's going to affect his fighting or his winning style. So no, I don't believe the leg injury is as much of a factor as everybody thinks it is. So I do think Holloway's able to gear up on his stand-up and punch away at him. Holloway has got just unreal takedown defense, and I think he puts him away. And that's just the way I look at it. Sorry. Now finally we come to, in my opinion, the most exciting fight on this card. Gaethje versus Eddie Alvarez. Eddie Alvarez has been a Hall of Fame level fighter and has been for years. He's done In my opinion, he is probably one of the better fighters that the public doesn't know. But I do kind of have a bit of an irritation considering the way he basically ducked Dustin Poirier. He should have got a rematch. I would have liked to seen these two guys coach on the Ultimate Fighter. I think he should not be in a position to be fighting Justin Gaethje at this time. But UFC loves him just because of the way he is. But I tell you that they are in love with Justin Gaethje because he does not care about getting hit. He just wants to hit back. And I think that's a great attribute at the light heavyweight division if you're able to put up with it. He is a guy that can go out and brawl, take damage, put pressure on you, and pretty much take the fight anywhere you want to do with that kind of self-confidence. In my opinion, he reminds me a lot of BJ Penn before BJ Penn got all soaked up into legacy. Whenever BJ Penn didn't care and just wanted to come out and just put damage on you, come home bloodied, hopefully your blood, even his blood didn't care, licking his gloves and just being a wild man. In my opinion, not outside, of course, because BJ Penn was crazy outside, but inside, Gaethje, in my opinion, I kind of look at him a lot of the same way. It's just where BJ Penn could do it with athleticism, Gaethje can do it with his hips and his wrestling. But I do see a lot of stand-up fighting in this, and in my opinion, Eddie is going to do more damage in the stand-up. But Alvarez's had this been 3 years ago, Alvarez would have won, I think, this fight handily because his chin was still more solid than it is now. I do think he needs to protect himself more, and I don't think Gaethje's going to give him that time, that recovery time, that let's fight for 20 seconds, separate for 5, let you kind of build that resilience bar up, so to speak. I don't see that happening. Gaethje's not going to quit. He's just going to keep moving forward, keep moving forward, keep moving forward, and Alvarez is going to have to dive to get a recovery. He gets stunned once, he's going to be fine. He gets stunned twice, he's going to be fine. That third time, Alvarez is going to be looking, okay, I've got to change the fight somehow. I can start to see the blackness closing in around the outside of my eyes. I need to break here. There's still 2 minutes left in this round. We've got to do something else. And when that goes to the round, Gaethje's going to take him there. I don't see Alvarez having a problem taking him down. I have a problem of him doing anything once they're there. If that makes any sense to you, it's kind of like me and my old partner Jack. We used to talk about. I've always told him I can take you down. I've got you by 100 pounds. I'm taking you down. And he's like, oh, you can't take me down. I said, no, I'll take you down. The problem is, what do I do to you when you're there? Because that's when you're going to do damage to me. But trust me, if I put my shoulder in your stomach, you're going down. You're going anywhere I put you. I kind of look at it the same way. If Eddie says you're going down, Justin says, no, I'm not. Yeah, you're going down. Problem is, what do I do with you once you're there? And I think that's where Eddie's going to start having problems. I don't see a submission, but I do think he tunes him up a little bit. I wish this was going 5 rounds. Inside 3 rounds, I see Gaethje by decision. So that's my picks. By all means, tell me what an idiot I am. Back up and listen to the Bellator if you'd like. Again, I'm going with Gaethje by decision. I'm going with Cejudo. I'll say round 2. I will go with Francis by decision because I think Overeem's going to coast more often than not. And I will go Holloway at the end of round 3. But those are my picks. I do think there are some other good fights on here. I'll try to have this up sooner rather than later. All I know is tonight, even though I do love this woman because of the way she carries herself, I'm not taking Roxanne. I don't care who they put in there as a main event with her. She loses once again because that's kind of the way she is. She's the most dangerous wild card divisional round fighter in history, but when it gets to them championship rounds, she always does tend to just not be there. But that is my pick for tonight again. But let's enjoy ourselves. I will try. I appreciate your patience with me so long here. Next week, maybe we'll talk basketball. Maybe we'll take mirror. You let me know what you'd like me to talk about on the A side. If you have B side topics, again, I'm going to be doing the Fantastic Four. I'm hoping to record that Tuesday. Speaking of Tuesday, I'll be back with another top 10 wrestling list. Not quite sure which one I'll do yet. Me and Steve will kind of break down some of that. Do by all means hit our website. I have some movie reviews coming up. I am still working on the zombie series. I do apologize for that. Hopefully this week, maybe me and my kids will get together and talk Spider-Man Homecoming. But again, hit our website up at 7poundbag.com. Thank you for watching. Please leave me any comments you'd like. And again, Kobe.